The NBA is back. Basketball is back, ladies and gentlemen. It's been 4 months since the Golden State Warriors captured the 2022 NBA title. Since then, we've seen their 7th championship parade. Congratulations to them. A new generation of players enter the league via the draft, some key free agent signings, plenty of trade rumors, a trio of all-stars that were traded to new teams. We'll get into that later. Young talent showcasing their game at the summer league level. And obviously you have some off-court drama, training camps, and preseason action. Now it's finally time to say basketball is back. And the brand new season kicks off tonight, a doubleheader. For those that don't know, the 76ers travel to Boston to take on the Celtics in the first game of the season. Following that, we'll have the defending champion Golden State Warriors host the heavily doubted, but at the same time heavily questioned, Los Angeles Lakers. Those games, of course, take place over there on TNT. I want to take this episode to, one, introduce basketball here on the podcast, but more importantly, do what every fan loves to do. From fan to expert, expert to fan, everyone loves to predict the future, especially in the world of sports. From all of the individual awards to the championship winner, today I'll be cementing my preseason ballot, my preseason predictions here on the show today, Tuesday, October 18th. I will preface before we get into it, this might not be released until Wednesday, but I can promise you, I have not watched a second of 2022-2023 NBA basketball. With all that being said, welcome to the Anomaly podcast. I'm your host, Owen Stiftar. Let's get into the awards. All right, MVP. That's the most important award. I'm not going to beat around the bush. That's what everyone wants to hear. And before we get into the actual award, just a quick breakdown of how this is going to work. I will be working from 3 to 1, maybe throwing in some individual or some honorable mentions, I might add at that. So for my third, let's kick this off. Actually, hold up. We'll start with the honorable mentions. I'm everywhere right now. We'll get it figured out. My honorable mentions, we have one, might surprise everybody, Zion Williamson. If you can't tell now, you will figure out in the future. I am a big fan of this Pelicans team. I really believe in them and what they can do. Let's not forget, Zion, when he was in the league, was a 28-plus point scorer. He was a first-time All-Star. He got hurt last year, but he's going to be back better than ever with a core that is ready to be a great regular season team. So Zion, Ja Morant, obviously, the Grizzlies were the 2 seed last year. They're proven to be built well around Ja Morant, and that team's going to be good, even if Ja Morant has to miss time with health. So if Ja Morant can stay healthy and they can sustain that success, Ja Morant's going to be in the running. And the last honorable mention I want to throw out there is LeBron James. You know, one thing I've learned as a Cleveland fan especially, you never bet against one LeBron James. The kid from Akron, I mean, in my opinion, he's the greatest player to ever touch a basketball. And that's a debate for a different day, obviously. But LeBron James, he's on a Lakers team that it's just him and AD. And with so many questions circulating around that franchise, around that team and its construction, LeBron James, at the end of the day, he's going to come out and he's going to have to show us why he is the best player in the world. Do I think that he is right now? No. But LeBron can come out and prove that to me yet again and the rest of the world that, hey, I had a bad year. Don't forget about me. But without further ado, let's get into my number 3 spot where I have Giannis Antetokounmpo. There's nothing to say that hasn't already been said about Giannis. He is the best player in the world. There is no doubts about it. No ifs, ands, or buts. Giannis Antetokounmpo, the kid from Greece, is the best player in the NBA. 2-time MVP. He's obviously won the Defensive Player of the Year as well. He had the year where he won both MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. Only been done a few times um, in the history of basketball. So obviously, Giannis is an amazing player. I will say, the most impressive part about Giannis and his game is that he continues to improve his outside game. His perimeter play, his ability to shoot off the dribble, to um, not just be a paint beast. He's not just a force down low. He's able to put pressure on that defense where they can't just build a wall defensively, like in Eric Spoelstra did that one playoff series. They can't just build a wall anymore. Giannis is continuously improve the outside game. He can now walk down the court. He can walk into a pull up jumper. He can catch and shoot threes. Giannis now has the back to the basket game as well. He's obviously improving that, um, and he has plenty of time to do it. For this season specifically, I mean, he's gonna continue to be the most dominant force in the game. He is today's Shaquille O'Neal. Shaq has proclaimed that himself, and that was a couple years, mind you. So he's only gotten better from that point when Shaq said that. And I will say the Bucks are a weird team where they're always a great regular season team, but it seems like they don't try. Maybe that's because Giannis only plays 30 minutes a night because they're up 20 and Giannis can sit the whole fourth quarter. But it just seems like they don't try in the regular season, yet they still end up with 50 to 55 wins every year. And I don't expect that to be any different this year. I'm not saying that they're going to go out and try for a 1 to 3 seed. I think they're going to naturally just get it because they're that much better than the teams out east. So Giannis is my number three. Without a doubt, Giannis is going to play like Giannis. He's going to be dominant. He's going to have the defensive impact, the greatest help defender in the NBA, and offensively, he's going to bring it. My number two is going to be maybe controversial to some, but give me Joel Embiid. Last year, he publicly complained about the award, about not getting the award, because as we all can remember, I want to say 50, 60 games into the season, everyone said, this is Joel Embiid's award. It's his award to lose, and yes, we all thought Jokic is number two, but there was a point in that season where Embiid kind of fell off, and Jokic really took that and ran. Jokic he ran away with that second MVP. Now, he is fully deserving, in my mind, Jokic, of having that award last season. But that was Joel Embiid's award to lose, and man, did he do it. Uh, but, I will say this. If you guys can remember, I want to say it was the year before the Jazz won 60 games. Well, tangent here. Um, the year before they won 60 games, Rudy Gobert did not get elected to the All-Star game. He came out in a press conference that is viral for Rudy Gobert fans, we'll say, and he was crying in the fact that he was not elected to the All-Star game. Now, I will say I get it. As a professional athlete, you're very passionate about what you do on the court, most importantly. But he complained about not being an All-Star. The next year, he had more votes than Donovan Mitchell, which you can have your debates on who was more important to that team. He had the most votes on that 60-win team. He was a first ballot All-Star. So my point here with Joel Embiid is that he publicly complained about the award last year, and with him being arguably the best big in the game talent-wise, with him leading the league in points per game last season, I fully expect him to do that again this year. And not to mention, I mean, he's always in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. He's got dominance on both sides of the ball, and if he does that to the caliber and level that we know Joel Embiid can do that, this award is his. With I will say this, sure, James Harden could turn back the clock this season. He said he lost 100 pounds, and he could possibly carry, but at the end of the day, this team's success relies on Embiid, and with him complaining about the award, if Joel Embiid replicates his production from last season, I'm not even saying excel or progress. if he replicates what he did last season, I feel like this award is Joel Embiid's. I feel like that's the safest bet this season. But who knows? We'll have to see. Personally, to me, my winner of this award, of course, I spoiled this to one of my friends. Shout out to Bakari. But Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic, I'm going to start this by saying that he is without a doubt a top 5 player in the league. That is not an argument to me. I would never entertain that argument. Luka Doncic is top 5 in the league. I mean, it was awesome watching him this summer, even where he claims the Eurobasket. The game over there is just harder than it is in the NBA. It's harder to score overseas than it is in the NBA in his eyes, and he was doing whatever he wanted with those defenders. One leg threes, off the dribble threes, 30-point triple doubles. He was doing whatever he wanted. So, but on the NBA side of things, Luka Doncic, the Dallas's relevancy, the team as a whole, their relevancy relies on Luka. In the heliocentric offense, in an offense where Luka has to be almost perfect. He has to average probably a 30-point triple double for this team to be relevant. And, if this team can get a top 4 seed with the stat line that Luka's probably going to have to put up, like I said, close to a 30-point triple double this year, I believe the stats can get him there in the top 4 seed. He has the story of being a generational player. He hasn't won it quite yet. And I believe everyone's kind of excited to vote for Luka to get this award. He just hasn't had the team success behind him quite yet in his career. But with pickups of Christian Wood and now having a bench of at least Dinwiddie and Christian Wood, that bench unit's going to be better. And I believe Luka, in my pick, will be MVP. I will also throw this out there. Last year, I picked Luka to also win this award. Obviously, he didn't. Shout out to Jokic. But Luka's one of those special players in the NBA. I can imagine a lot of people were like this with LeBron or MJ. If you're that old, uh, where it's like you can call. I'm predicting Luka to win this award. I don't want to go with let's say Joel Embiid this year and Luka not getting the award. That's the greed in me. That's the greed of me being a fan and wanting to be right. Is that the right way to go about things? It's my podcast. But at the end of the day, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want this to not be the year Luka wins it, and I don't call it. So give me Luka. That's the MVP. Let's keep it moving. Defensive Player of the Year. Honorable mentions. Giannis Antetokounmpo. We talked about him and his impact defensively, especially as a help defender. We don't need to continue on that. But Drew Holiday as my other honorable mention. Now you're saying, hey, Owen, that's crazy for 2 teammates to both be in the top 5. Trust me, I know. It was more so I just wanted to show love to Drew Holiday. Last year with Marcus Smart winning the award as a point guard, uh, or I guess he played the point guard last year. He was the first since Gary Payton back in '92, I believe, and it really opens the door for a lot of players to win this award. And my winner, I mean, it's gonna prove that. It's gonna show that fact. Uh, at least in my opinion, I believe my winner can have that impact on the perimeter game because it is a perimeter centered game in the NBA nowadays. It's not a big oriented game. It's not an inside, triangle offense game anymore. But more so, I just wanted to use my honorable mention to show some love to Drew Holiday. So many elite scorers in the NBA: Kyrie, KD, Devin Booker. You name them, they will go out there and say Drew Holiday is the best defender in the league or gives them the most fits in the league. So I want to show some love to Drew Holiday. But my number 3 spot is going to be Rudy Gobert. We touched on him earlier for bad reasons. We're going to shine more so on the light here. Rudy Gobert got traded in a massive deal from the Utah Jazz, who are tanking, to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the Timberwolves, their landscape is so interesting because this year, I mean, it's a real conversation. Who is the best player on that team? I think right now it might undisputably be Karl Anthony Towns, but maybe, hey, maybe after this year, it's Anthony Edwards. So, they have a nice little core there, and then they go and their biggest weakness last year, I will say, they did have Pat Bev, but they didn't have enough defense, right? Especially on the inside. And if you look at Cat as an individual player, what's the biggest hole in his game? Defense, especially interior, blocking shots, protecting the cup, being the last line of defense that can really impact a game. Um, sure, he can rebound, and Cat's actually a pretty good rebounder. Defensively, he's not there. But what do? They go out, the Timberwolves go out and grab the best rim protector in the league, and that's Rudy Gobert. Advanced stats back that up. There is no doubt about it. I mean, he was carrying that below average. I have other words but I want to use, but we're family friendly. The perimeter defense on those Jazz teams for years now have been way below average. I mean, Donovan Mitchell and Royce O'Neal Royce O'Neal, don't get me wrong, is an okay defender, but at best, the four people in front of Rudy Gobert were always average at best. And for him to have that team be a top five defensive team year in and year out, that stands for something. That means a lot, and that shows how great of a defender he is. So, without a doubt, give me Rudy Gobert for that award. For number three, sorry. But number two, Bam Adebayo. Bam Adebayo, I want to say about a month ago now, tweeted out that him, Giannis, and I cannot remember the third player he mentioned. I think it was Draymond. That he said these these are the only three players in the NBA that can guard 1 through 5. Um, Obviously, a lot of people disagreed with that, but a lot of people agreed. It's all about perspective in the game of basketball, and that's what makes it awesome. That's the beauty of the media. um, you know, and there's a lot of bad with media, but there's a lot of good. And um, Bam Adebayo can go 1 through 5. Very versatile. We already know on the outside perspective that Jimmy Butler and um, Kyle Lowry aren't necessarily regular season players anymore. They're more sort of on cruise control until the playoffs. And this Heat team, side note, is built. They're built for the playoffs. They are built for a deep run. But I feel like they need a lot to go their way because they did lose a lot this offseason. And if they can maintain a 3 to 4 seed, it's going to have to be on Bam Adebayo's shoulders. Not only offensively, he's going to have to take a step, but defensively, he's just going to have to continue to be great. I believe he was the runner-up last season for the award. Bam Adebayo, we know what he can be. We know what he can do on the defensive side of the ball. He needs to continue to do that for this Heat team to have success. And if they can do that, I can see Bam being a serious contender for this award. He's my number two. My winner might ruffle some feathers. My winner might upset almost everybody listening to this podcast. But give me Ben Simmons. Give me Ben Simmons. You are not on the wrong channel. You are not hearing this wrong. He's not a. He's not. I've looked through all the betting odds. I've looked through everything. Not a lot of people believe in Ben Simmons as a defender. That's the main person that came to mind when Bam Adebayo put that tweet out. I will say, granted, in defense of Bam Adebayo, Ben Simmons hasn't played in like 2 years, but let's not sit there and forget the impact that Ben Simmons has on the game of basketball. Sure, he doesn't shoot threes. Trust me, I get it. I get it. I'm frustrated as a fan too, but if that's not in your game, let's not force that in his game. I get it. You're paying a player 200 plus mil or whatever Ben Simmons is going to be making over his contract. You want him to progress on all sides of the ball. You want him to be a well-rounded player, so it can help everybody else progress as a player in their own right. The problem is, I mean, you can't. That's like getting Dwight Howard in his prime, just saying, "Hey, we know you're a great defender. Step out and shoot some threes." We saw how that worked out there in Charlotte and Atlanta and 32 other places Dwight Howard was in the middle of his career. It's just not, if it's not a specialty in your game, don't force it. Ben Simmons is such a great playmaker, but more importantly for our topic at hand right now, he's such a great defender. He can guard 1 through 5. The Nets are not known as a crazy defensive team. I mean, KD, sure, he's a good defender when he doesn't have to expend so much energy on the offensive side of the ball. So if him and Kyrie can handle the offensive side of the ball, which is very capable, that's without a doubt it can happen. And Ben Simmons, he's going to guard the best player night in, night out, and he's going to do a very good job at it. Like I said, we're family friendly, otherwise I'd use other words. He's going to lock up your favorite player on occasion, or at least minimize him. So give me Ben Simmons. He's going to control that defensive side of the ball. The Nets are going to be good this year, health willing, obviously. And Ben Simmons is my winner. We're going to move on to Sixth Man of the Year, and I've shuffled around with this pick a lot. But to say the least, I'll start with my honorable mentions. The first is going to be Malcolm Brogdon. Okay, Malcolm Brogdon, point guard for the Boston Celtics. He's going to be coming off the bench there. And we get to see him in action tonight and a couple hours, actually. It was, in my opinion, one of the most underrated free agency signings. Malcolm Brogdon, or trades, I guess. He's going to be able to come off the bench. Last time he came off the bench, as most of you, if you didn't know, was when he was with a young Giannis and a young Chris Middleton and, over there in Milwaukee. He was a 50-40-90 member. I remember him and Steph Curry were like the only two to do it that singular season. But Malcolm Brogdon was a 50-40-90 member. That offseason, he got paid. And I mean paid by the Indiana Pacers. I believe that was the 2017 offseason. Regardless of when it was, we know what Malcolm Brogdon can do. He's coming into a minimized role with less stress, less, responsibility. All he has to do is come in and command the second unit. And most of the time, with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum going to have overlapping minutes with the bench units, Malcolm Brogdon, it's not like he has to carry an offense. I mean, most of the time he's gonna be on the break with Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum. Throw in Blake Griffin. I get he's not the same athletically, but you're gonna have options on the break. Whenever Rob Will comes back, the Time Lord, that's gonna be another option. Here that's a nice little pick and roll partner. That's a nice lob threat. And Malcolm Brogdon's going to be a great piece for this Boston Celtics team. We'll get into that later, maybe for the title prediction. Stay tuned for that. But Malcolm Brogdon is my honorable mention. Another honorable mention, Christian Wood. Obviously, he got traded for air. He got traded for scraps on the road, going from Houston to the Dallas Mavericks, excuse me. He's switching conferences. Oh, staying in the same conference, but switching teams. He's going to an interesting situation here where, and the reason he's an honorable mention and not number 3 on my list is because I do see him starting at some point in the season. But Jason Kidd has come out and said that Christian Wood and Dinwiddie are going to command the second unit. They're going to give that team some much needed bench help. And Luka's going to basically have the starting unit to himself, which, as we've seen plenty of times in the past, Luka can do that. Let's not kid ourselves here. Christian Wood, I mean, he averaged 18 and basically 10 as a Rocket, and he didn't want to be there. I mean, honestly, I feel bad for him for the sense that he signed with Houston a couple years back with the thought that he was going to be there for a couple years with James Harden. At the time, it was a great signing. Everybody loved it. And, hey, 2 months into that contract with the Rockets, James Harden's shipped to Brooklyn. Now it's back to square one where he was at in Detroit. So Christian Wood, he's coming into a team where he's going to have other guards with him that are going to excel his game, open up his game, and I could see Christian Wood averaging maybe a 20 and 10. That's not crazy to say with all the shots that will be available for him, especially coming off the bench. Um, that's going to do it for my honorable mentions. My number three spot is Bones Highland, point guard for the Denver Nuggets. Bones Highland, we know what he can do offensively. We know how deep of a bag he has. Um, I mean, he's very shifty, and like I mentioned with Nikola Jokic earlier, if I don't know if I did, but I meant to say earlier that I didn't even want to put Jokic as an honorable mention. It would be cool to see him as a three straight MVP winner. I just don't see it happening with voters fatigue. But Bones Highland, I'm expecting that Nuggets team to be a 1 to 2 seed. It's some people's title favorites. I wouldn't go that far, but the Nuggets I'm expecting to be a great regular season team. And a thing going for Bones Highland is Jamal Murray's health. We can't expect Jamal Murray to come back and be bubble Jamal Murray, playoff Jamal Murray, where he was dropping 50, when need be. But Jamal Murray, there's nothing like game shape, and I'll say that in a lot of my podcasts with a lot of people coming off of suspension or injury or whatever it may be. There's nothing like in-game shape. So Jamal Murray, I feel like might take the first month or two to get back into shape, as far as game shape, and get his legs back under him. And I feel like Bones Highland, especially if the team is winning a lot, can really cement that sixth man of the year to himself. Like I mentioned, that 60-win Jazz team. Jordan Clarkson won the sixth man of the year that year, and it was really the award was really decided after the first month. Like I remember that team was on fire, first in the West, and he was the sixth man on that team. Now, granted, he was putting up like 15 or so a game, and I believe Bones Highland can do that. Would I bet on it? No, maybe in the 10 to 12 range here, but I'm saying if that Nuggets team is off to a hot start, one seed in the West, his lead, the narrative behind Bones Highland in the first month and a half or 2 months might just be so strong, he might just get the award. But nonetheless, I'm expecting a big season for Bones Highland. My second pick here, and I switched this as of probably about 10 seconds ago. I'm flip flopping between these two. We all know these two. My number two is going to be Tyler Hero. He just got a big contract extension, just like number one. Congratulations to Tyler Hero and his family. That's generational money. But it's time to prove it. It's time to prove your worth. You know, uh, this year, there is speculation that Tyler Hero may start this season. And that is another reason why I don't want to put him one and instantly be wrong a month into the season. I know there's a certain uh, limit there. There's a certain amount of games a six man can start that he's still considered a bench player. I'm just not sure what that number is off the top of my head. I think it also changes year to year based off other bench players. But Tyler Hero, I will say one thing about his contract. If you actually read it, it says that now he's getting about 35 million a year. So, like I said, congrats to him and his family. But there's an incentive in the contract where he gets an additional $1 million if he wins MVP, if he wins Defensive Player of the Year, or if he wins, or if he makes like an All NBA team, right? That seems crazy to me. That seems like if I was Tyler Hero, do I think I have a shot at MVP? Absolutely not. But a $1 million incentive? Like I believe if I was in his position, I would be like, I want at least 10 mil because that would mean that Jimmy would be hurt and I would step into the starting lineup, carry this team to a top two, top three seed, and even then, I mean, they would probably give it to Bam before Tyler Hero, but I think 1 million is just too low. Nonetheless, I think Tyler Hero this year may not be his year, but if I had to put money on anybody to become the next Lou Will, to become the next Jamal Crawford, the man that is in the top two for Sixth Man of the Year each and every season, it's going to be Tyler Hero. And that is because my number one guy this year also got a new contract, and that's Jordan Poole. Obviously, viral videos, we'll get into that just in a second. But Jordan Poole, sixth man for the Golden State Warriors, coming off of a championship run. Um, it's go time. It's go time for Jordan Poole as well. He just got a new contract. Um, and I would expect him to take a leap forward. I think Klay Thompson, though I drafted him on my fantasy team, Klay Thompson might disappoint a lot of people this year. And Klay Thompson, I mean, he is getting older. He did have two back-to-back devastating leg injuries. I do expect him to be better, but I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a step back this season. And Jordan Poole, this is where I'm expecting him to take a step forward. And I think the Warriors believe that as well, giving him this contract. And I believe he also has a story. I think we might forget it as fans, midway through. But, their story is simple. They're going to be a winning team. And we know how great the Warriors are year in and year out. And the spotlight will be on him, I think, more so than any other six man this season because of that viral video with Draymond. Because he got sucker punched, that might catapult him in the voters' mind and be like, hey, there's this drama around the team. He still went out there and was a professional. He still went out there and performed and progressed, I'm assuming, at that. So Jordan Poole, he was in the conversation last year. I think this is the year he could take the award home. We'll move on here. Run through this next one pretty quickly. The Rookie of the Year. We'll start with number three. I have no honorable mentions because it's really a three-man race in my eyes. Jaden Ivey is my number three. He's going to, well, I'll start this if you're not familiar. Jaden Ivey is going to be a shooting guard for the Detroit Pistons. He is going to be playing along Cade Cunningham, who should progress as a playmaker, as an offensive player in general, but nonetheless, he's going to progress as a playmaker. And Jaden Ivey can score the ball. One thing is for sure, one thing that we all know about Jaden Ivey is that he can put the ball in the basket in a variety of ways, off the dribble, off the catch, off the pick. He can do everything off the pin down, and he showed that ability on the G League Ignite team. So Jaden Ivey, um, and I will say this also, he could also have a story. I know the story incentive, I keep bringing it up, but it is a big part in the awards at the end of the day. Just like D Rose when he won the 2011 MVP, or Russell Westbrook in 2016, where like the story can sometimes cover up the flaws that that player had in that season, like Russell Westbrook being a six seed winning in the MVP, but he had a triple double. He lost Kevin Durant, and he went out there and did that. So despite he was a six seed, the story, I believe, put him over. And for Jaden Ivey, hear me out here. A lot of people in the NBA world believed that Miles Bridges, if the legal stuff didn't happen, he would have went to the Pistons, right? So for this Pistons team that needs a go-to scorer, I believe Cade, as good as he is as a playmaker, as a leader, and all that good stuff, I don't think he'll be more than a second option on a winning basketball team as far as scoring the basketball. Jaden Ivey can come in, and I won't say be a number one option yet because I don't want to put that pressure on him, but he can score, and I believe that could be a story there. You know, it might not reach the natural media or the national media, excuse me, because of what Miles Bridges did. Um, that's going to be obviously looked at in a negative light, but the story is there for Jaden Ivey. He's stepping in for someone that the Pistons were kind of locked to have um, in free agency, and he steps in and gives them that scoring boost that they need. And he doesn't slow down the progression of the people around him, helps them maybe compete for 6 to 8 seed. Um, but hey, we'll have to see how they actually mesh as teammates and as a team. My number two, who I really want to be my number one, in Rookie of the Year is Keegan Murray. He's the fourth pick out of Iowa, four-year player, throughout preseason. Now, I will say some of this came against backups and people trying to get jobs, but throughout preseason, he looked like the best rookie, in my opinion, without a doubt. Throughout preseason action, I'm not talking about summer league or training camp, preseason ball, Keegan Murray looked like the best rookie in this class. Now, I will say he is the most pro ready. He is a four-year player, so it should happen. But at the end of the day, I mean, they're in the same draft class. I mean, Keegan Murray can't control how fast another player comes out. And right now, I mean, we're looking at it from an outsider's perspective. I'm very optimistic with the Kings team this year. I believe they can make a playoff push. Would I bet on it? No. But if this team does have a playoff push where they can be a 6 to 8 seed, or maybe a playoff play-in team, it's kind of going to be like Scotty Barnes in the fact of last year, where Keegan's going to have to be a big part of that. And I believe Keegan, he's a day one starter. Him, De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, that big three can be a 6 to 8 seed, in my opinion. Probably more so an 8 seed, obviously, in the West. But Keegan, if they're going to be there, he has to be a big part of that. And that's why he's my number two. Keegan Murray's my favorite rookie in this class. That's kind of why I say it. But without a doubt, number one, the obvious choice, Paolo Banchero. He has all the tools to be a great player in this league. I won't say elite yet, because I believe elite you have to prove. But he has all the tools to be a great player, great size, skill, IQ, feel for the game. I mean, if you watch him, it does look like he is miles ahead of some vets out there or some people that were playing in preseason ball that have been in the league for a while now. And, I mean, simply, he's on the Magic. He has all the opportunity in the world. I mean, who's going to take shots away from Paolo Banchero? I mean, nobody, So maybe Franz Wagner, who he was very underrated last season. But Paolo is my rookie of the year, more so because I think that's just the opportunity. But as we move forward, most improved player award. Before we get into this, I want to say little tangent here. The most improved player is a ruined award. As of right now, like I said, Tuesday, October 18th. I'm not sure when you guys will actually hear this. I think you'll hear it on Wednesday. So, but I can promise you, this is before tip off of the season. um, they've ruined the award last year with letting John Morant win it. And what I mean by this is, yes, John Morant did progress. He did help his team go from an 8 seed to a 2 seed. Congratulations. But isn't that why you drafted John Morant at number 2? I mean, who drafts a player in the top 3, not expecting them to be a generational talent, be now I don't want to throw around generational talent, but a player that could turn your franchise around, right? I mean, John Morant was the number 2 pick. You expect him to be good. That's why you drafted him number 2. I mean, do you know how many people are in the draft pool? Hundreds and hundreds of players. But he is the second best in that class at the time. I still believe so. But he's the second best player in that class. You expect him to turn your franchise around. And my number 2 pick in my rankings here is another. He falls in that case because I want to fit along with what the NBA is going to do. Um, I mean, like we brought him up earlier, Cade Cunningham. He was good last year, but you draft him number 1 because you expect him to be good. You expect him to turn your franchise around, and that's why I think a most improved player should go to someone like a Malcolm Brogdon, like a Victor Oladipo, who, yes, now I will say, Victor Oladipo was drafted number 2, but look how his career started. He didn't do much in Orlando. He was traded to OKC for nothing. Then he was traded to Indiana he was traded for Paul George, which was big. But then he was just kind of thrown in. As I remember when that happened, everyone was like, "Why was PG traded for nothing?" Like Indiana fans were mad. But hey, that same year, that I can't remember if it was that year or the year after. They were battling LeBron in the playoffs. 2018 took LeBron to 7 games. And who led that charge? Victor Oladipo, and that's why he was the most improved player that season. But let's get back to it. My most improved players of this season, I have seemed to have lost my most improved player candidates, but um, I'll just get straight to it. I mean, my number two is Anthony Edwards because to fit in with the pick from last year, if that's how the NBA is going to rank things, if they're going to go off of just record, Anthony Edwards is going to win this award this year. Going from a Timberwolves team, which I believe was a 7 seed or 8 seed last year, I cannot remember. I believe it was 7. Um, they were a 7 seed last year, and they have the talent to jump up to be a 3 or 4 seed this year. Who's probably going to be the best player on that team? Anthony Edwards, because you drafted him number one. Do you guys catch? You guys catch what I'm throwing out here now? This is why it's a ruined award, and they can fix it if they give it to my number one player, Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously, he has to go out there and produce. Tyrese Halliburton is in Indiana. He was kind of thrown to the side of the road by Sacramento for no reason. I mean, yes, they got Domantas Sabonis in return, but this is Tyrese Halliburton. It's still questionable why they traded him, but Halliburton, he's gonna have all the opportunity in the world in Indiana, you know, and with all the questions that are circulating around that team, is Buddy Hield gonna be there? Is Miles Turner gonna be there? There's pieces around that team that we don't even know if they're gonna be there. But one thing that remains constant with that team, that's expected to remain constant, it's Halliburton's team. I mean, there's no questions about it. I expect him to average 20 and 10 this season. He's gonna have everything around him that he needs to put up numbers and do what he needs to do to capture this award. So I believe to save the Most Improved Player award, give it to Tyrese Halliburton. Coach of the Year, we'll make this quick. Some of my honorable mentions I had Mike Malone, coach for the Denver Nuggets. I expect them to be 1 to 2 seed, 60 plus win team, and that's self-explanatory why he would win the award. Another honorable mention is Ty Lue, which we'll talk about them maybe a little bit later. Ty Lue, coach of the Clippers. I believe this is go time for the Clippers. This is what, year 4 of the Paul George Kawhi Leonard experiment, and they haven't won a chip. At the end of the day, that's why you trade for those players. That's why you trade 7 first-round picks for a Paul George. So I'm expecting this team to be very good this season. Ty Lue, honorable mention. My number 2 coach here, or my number 3 coach, excuse me, is Darvin Ham. Darvin Ham's my number 3. Coach of the Lakers, if you're not familiar. And there's so many questions. I mean, there's not a team that's more questioned in the NBA than the Lakers. For a good reason. When you have LeBron and AD, you deserve that. In LA, especially. But there's so many questions, and if you can't figure out this Russell Westbrook drama, just give him the award. I have no more questions. You know, if he can make this Russell Westbrook thing work, whether if he's coming off the bench or whatever he's doing, whatever scheme he puts together, if he can figure out Westbrook and his fit with this Lakers team, give the award to Darvin Ham. My number 2 coach is Jason Kidd, coach of the Mavericks. I'm expecting the Mavericks to be a top 3, 4 seed this season. And they have Luka. They brought in Christian Wood. Um, and the thing I like about Jason Kidd is, yes, he brings defensive intensity to a team like the Mavericks who didn't have much of it before Jason Kidd. He brings it to a team, and he brings order. Christian Wood, he's not very happy that he got traded for, and he's going to be coming off of the bench, right? You can tell he's not very happy, but I guarantee you he's going to be happy. One, when that contract hits, and two, when they start winning games and he realizes how easy life is with one Luka Doncic. So the team, he has order. Everyone's buying into what Jason Kidd has for that Mavericks team. And like I said, if they could be a top 3 to 4 seed, Jason Kidd has a case. And that's why he's here at number 2. Number 1 might surprise a lot of you guys. Surprised me when I was going through it. I said, hey, you know what? This makes sense. Give me Willie Green. I believe the youngest coach in the NBA, Willie Green, coach of the New Orleans Pelicans. I believe they're going to be the most improved team this year, without a doubt. Last year, what were they, the 10th or 11th seed? You know, they went out and traded for C.J. McCollum, extended him this offseason. Congrats to him and his family. Excuse me. But C.J. McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Zion, it's an amazing core. You know, you pair that with Jonas Valanciunas, which is a very underrated big man in the NBA. Off the bench, you're going to have Herbert Jones. You're going to have Jose Alvarado, which they're very scrappy, very dirty work players, which every successful team needs those players. And Willie Green, being the youngest coach in the NBA, he's kind of like Sean McVay. He still gets a lot of respect from others around the league. He has control over his team, and I believe Zion coming back, I mean, I really hope people don't forget how dominant he was. And he looks better than ever. I mean, the dude looks ripped. So I just don't want everybody to forget how dominant this team, or how good this team can be. Don't underestimate them. And they could surprise a lot of people if they can get a top 4 seed. Willie Green, in my opinion, without a doubt, it's his award. Last thing I want to touch on is my finals prediction. Which teams do I believe can make the finals, can make a run towards the finals, and get the oh so important Larry O'Brien trophy? Out of the East, I'm going to save your time. It's going to be Milwaukee. Milwaukee. Giannis, I touched on him earlier and how amazing that. I'm not sure if I touched on that core, but I want to say that is the best big three fit wise, I think, in the NBA right now, and one of the best fit wise big threes of all time. And you might say, hey, that's crazy. You know, Middleton and Drew Holiday are not Hall of Famers. But, hear me out when I say this, you have talented big threes in the past like James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and KD. You look at that on paper and say, hey, who is beating this team? Well, I can give you a lot of teams who did because they didn't fit, right? Now, for the Bucks, how they built things, they have their superstar player, and they went and fit a Chris Middleton and a Drew Holiday next to him. They both fit perfectly with Giannis and what he does and how he can succeed. Middleton and Drew Holiday can both still be successful while Giannis is doing that. Pair that with Bobby Portis, which he's getting better and better as a fit along Giannis each and every season. You know, I the team is built for Giannis. It's built for a deep playoff run. I don't see a team in the East competing with them. Um, and health willing, obviously, Milwaukee's going to go to the finals again. In the West, I know what you're thinking. Golden State, right? Who is going to beat the chemistry of that team? You know, I mean, hey, is this their last dance as a core of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green? Maybe, but that's not what I'm discussing today because they are the easy pick. I'm sure if I had to bet my life savings on it, I would pick the Warriors. But the fan in me wants to see a team that's never been to the finals be in the finals. That is the Los Angeles Clippers. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the make or break year. This is the prove it year for the Clippers. They picked up John Wall. Kawhi Leonard's going to be healthy. Paul George is going to be healthy. Reggie Jackson, interesting enough, is going to get the start at point guard this year, which is questionable, but hey, that's why we're not running things as fans. You know, you got Luke Kennard, excuse me, he's a sniper. Zubac, very underrated big. Um, I believe in this Clippers team a lot. And for the fan in me to see Paul George, to see Kawhi Leonard and John Wall win a ring or win another ring, I would love to see it. Unfortunately, in a matchup of Milwaukee and the Clippers in a final series, might sound crazy, the best player of the world, the best player in the world at the end of the day is going to come across with that chip. And I'm going to take Milwaukee. Give me Milwaukee in 6 or 7 games. Obviously depends on who has home court. But that's it for me. Give me Milwaukee over the Clippers as my finals prediction. All right, before we get out of here, I wanted to mention I mentioned it earlier, I have a fantasy basketball team this season. I completed the draft yesterday. I am feeling pretty good about my team, I will admit. But one thing for sure, that I know for sure, is it's a long season. And everything can change faster than the clock on the wall, especially in fantasy basketball. It's definitely more dynamic of a game than fantasy football. But hey, be on the lookout for future coverage involving fantasy basketball on this podcast. Who knows if there's any fantasy basketball fanatics out there? I may reach out and ask for your help because I'm not the best at it. But make sure you go follow my socials. They're going to be posted on the screen. Follow the Instagram if you have one. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. I'm going to try and get the comments fixed so you can leave comments. I'm going to respond to each and every comment. Hey, drop some questions for me. I'd love to debate in the comments. And hey, we're going to get this community built. We're going to keep it going. And that's going to wrap up our show today. I will see you guys on Thursday, October 20th, where we will cover the upcoming NFL week. Hopefully we can bounce back on those picks of the week. Last week it didn't do too hot, but it's a long season, right? So until then, until Thursday, I love you guys. Take care.